Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. I'm Joe Chaffee, and to my left is Joe Rayo, and this is the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is on every night at around 7:30 Eastern Time. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by our friends at Omni True Value Hardware, which I'm still having a problem here. Good Lord. Oh, good Lord. Those 4 days off have really set me back. We're brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware, Long Island's largest provider of mulch this time of year, so that you could have a picture perfect yard this spring and summer. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. The telephone number is 631-756-1125, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. So, Arizona humidity today. I saw relative humidities down in the 10 to 15% range at 1 o'clock this afternoon over many areas from the lower Hudson Valley down through northern New Jersey and northeastern Pennsylvania. And it happens every spring that we get very dry air like this, but it's wonderful. At the same time, it's got that brush fire risk that you have to deal with.
Well, the good thing about today was we had the very dry conditions. We had the balmy temperatures in the mid and upper 60s to near 70 in some spots. But the good thing is that the winds, which were rather active yesterday, were not as active as they were yesterday today. And as a result, I didn't see any red flag warnings. I did see special weather statements in regard to the possibility of brush fires here and there. And it would have been a red flag had we had any decent or any robust wind like yesterday, but it didn't happen. So it just turned out to be a fairly nice day out there. Well, more than just fairly nice. I mean, 60s to near 70, 10 to 15% relative humidity, bright sunshine, a few thin high clouds. I mean, my goodness, what more could you have asked for except maybe asking that this could have been a Saturday or Sunday instead of a Tuesday?
Yeah, I noticed that the folks on the Discord chat, they're desperate for some kind of weather because they're reminiscing about thunderstorms from days past and hail and strong winds and all the rest of it. It still looks fairly quiet for the next couple of days. Thinking that over the weekend things may start to get a little more showery at times, but the block is still holding in a position where our weather is going to be, it's going to be decent going into Thursday, I think.
I think it may be even beyond that. In fact, I'm beginning to question whether we might even see a shower here on Saturday, maybe late in the day, I think. But Saturday could be dry too. The day that looks like it's going to be wet around here will be Sunday, and there may be some lingering activity spilling over into the start of next week on Monday. But other than that, this weather pattern looks very nice. It'll be turning cooler. Winds the next couple of days, Joe, unlike today and yesterday out of the northwest. The next few days coming up, more of an east or east southeast component of the wind. So temperatures will not get as mild, but still, I don't think anybody's going to be upset with temperatures that are going to be near or above 60 over these next few days coming up.
Yes, indeed. We also have, we do have some severe weather issues in parts of the plains tonight, and also the potential for severe weather tomorrow across some of the Gulf states, some of the same areas that have been hit hard from the prior couple of weeks and the widespread severe weather outbreaks of the last couple of weeks. I don't think this one will be as sharp as that, but nonetheless, these areas have been being hit as hard as they have. Just the fact that they're having severe weather at all is certainly front and center. And of course, today, the anniversary of the April blizzard of 1982, correct? Or 83?
Yes, and
82.
82, no, 82, and we have it up on the screen now for everybody to see the front page of Newsday out on Long Island, and that was quite an incredible day. We had We started out actually as rain in the pre-dawn hours, but evaporation evaporational cooling took over very quickly, dropped the temperatures to below the freezing mark. And Joe, it turned out to be an afternoon where we had periods of moderate to even heavy snow, thunder, and lightning. When it was all over said and done, 9.6 inches of snow had accumulated at Central Park, probably a bit more north and west of the city. But you know what? We talk about the snow. To me, the most incredible thing about this storm was not so much the snow itself. And by the way, at Central Park in New York City, the normal April snowfall is zero point 0.6 inches, less than an inch. And here we had 9.6. But the thing that really blew my mind was the cold temperatures that came in after the storm moved off. We had three consecutive record low temperatures, the 6th, the 7th, and 8th of April. And on April 7th, a record low max. The high temperature, in spite of periods of bright sunshine in New York City on April the 7th, 1982, 30 degrees, a full 26 degrees below normal. And again, that was the highest temperature that we had that afternoon, was 30 degrees. Yankees, they would just start the season on April the 6th, 1982, playing the Texas Rangers. They never got that game on, of course. But because of all the snow and the wind and the cold temperatures, it took the Yankee grounds crew and also the stadium maintenance operations staff to clear away all the snow that was on the field and in the stands. 5 days, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th. The Yankees didn't finally play their first game of the season until Easter Sunday, April the 11th. And in fact, they were forced to play a doubleheader against the White Sox. And P.S., they lost the first game. Goose Gossage got tagged with the loss in 12 innings, no less, 7-6. And they lost the second game by a score of 2-0. It wasn't a very good week for the New York Yankees or Yankee fans. And the only thing good, if you were a snow lover, was this incredible storm, this blizzard, which enveloped the area again on this day 39 years ago. I can't even believe it's been 39 years. To me, it seems like, maybe 5 or 10 or at most 15 years ago, 39 years ago for this incredible storm. The only time that we ever had officially a blizzard in the month of April in New York. You might say that it was an April 1st, Joe.
Yes, you might say that. In fact, you just did.
Yes, I just did. Yes,
yes you did. I missed this, by the way. I had just a few weeks before I had got hired at my first TV job in Corpus Christi, Texas. So I was there in Texas. I remember looking at maps the days going into this and talking to Alan Casper and saying, you guys are locked for a burial here. It was one of those, actually it was a defining moment for me because of the fact that, and I always tell young forecasters, you have to, you forecast with your head, not with your heart. So, all of us are snow weenies at some level. I've admitted that many times, and I think Joe would admit that too, especially now that he doesn't have to drive in it. But
yes.
When you're doing this professionally, you have to kind of take that out of the equation and make sure you're looking things fairly honestly and without that wish casting part of it. And the fact that I was able to nail it a few days before was a very, made me feel good, even though I didn't get to see a flake or an ice pellet.
There was one guy in New York. It was the night before the blizzard, April the 5th, Monday night, on his 11 o'clock weathercast, who gave several reasons why, in his humble opinion, we were not going to see much in the way of snow. Won't mention the person's name. However, he did say, among other things, he brought up the current readings. And at that hour, it was like 40 degrees in New York. He said, look at the temperature, 40 degrees. How are we going to get snow when the temperature is so mild? We need to get it below freezing. Look at the humidity. You need humidity, folks, to set the stage for a major storm. And the relative humidity at that hour with a 40-degree temperature was only like 25%. P.S. The dew point was like in the single digits. So, as I said a few moments ago, once it started to precipitate, evaporational cooling took over and very quickly dropped that temperature like a rock to below freezing. The other thing is, he was pointing out the winds. He said, "Look at the winds. They're coming from the north and northeast." I said, you need a wind coming in from the ocean to bring in all that moisture. Well, of course, naturally, the north part of the wind kept the cold air in place,
Right.
and eventually a backing into the northeast brought in the moisture, which indeed transformed that rain over to snow. He called for less than 2 inches of snow, and he got hammered.
Oh, I mean,
He was the only
and
one
deservedly so.
who
Well,
yes, yes.
late season snows. That's how they happen. They're usually it's warm the day before. It's not January. It's not February. It's not December where you're sitting with temperatures in some of the bigger snows, and even in some of the in some storms it doesn't happen this way. But where you're sitting in the 20s the day before, or at least down in the 30s, and that there's plenty of cold air around. And when you get into later in March, and particularly the second half of the month, you start moving into April when the average highs are up over 60. You're not gonna have. It's quite likely that the day before you're going to have temperatures well above freezing. It's the actual event itself that basically brings in all the cold air, and that air was certainly Arctic in origin, which is another thing that was part of that particular equation. We don't have
Well,
that.
you're right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. I mean, before the blizzard of 1888, you're absolutely right. It was very nice, spring-like, balmy. Then the hammer came down, so to speak, on our area. And usually, when you get a big snowstorm in March, or, my goodness, April, you say to yourself, "All right, well, this isn't going to last very long. As soon as the snow stops, next day it'll warm up and everything like that." But again, that was not the case with this storm. It was cold for many days after the
Yes.
snow, so that snow wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
So that was the irony of this whole thing, was the snow, and then the cold weather that followed. It was more like a pattern that you would see in January or February, as opposed to one that you'd normally see with a heavy snowfall in March, or, my goodness, even early April.
Meanwhile, in back in, and a storm like that, by the way, is a generational event. It's no accident that almost 40 years have passed since it's happened, because these are things that most of these types of storms are things that you usually see once in a lifetime. Meanwhile, on the satellite view, you still see that storm that yesterday was sitting closer to Nova Scotia. It's actually drifted a little bit south today. It still did its job of creating sinking air from western New England down into the mid-Atlantic states. And you can see the impact of that by the little disturbance that's moved off the Great Lakes and now moving into western New York. It's just getting weaker and weaker as it moves into that area of subsidence, that sinking air, that dry air, and that system is basically falling apart. So while there might be some patchy clouds overnight into tomorrow morning, that's pretty much about it. Maybe somebody sees a stray shower in Pennsylvania out of this. We'll look at the radar in a second. But that storm's still churning there, so we're kind of holding in this block sweet spot. And in the meantime, starting to see thunderstorms blowing up. Look at across Kansas. There's a pretty fierce-looking blow up of clouds here, Joe, in central Kansas and in southern Nebraska. They stand out so well on this GO satellite view. And that's where some of the severe weather risk is for today. Now, this radar shot here is from earlier. I'm going to give it a refresh. So there's a line of showers was forming in eastern Kansas earlier today. Now, as we take a look at the current radar, we'll put this loop in motion. Hopefully, it will go in motion soon. Things are just a little bit slow signal-wise on my end, loading some of these maps. But again, you saw the clouds firing up, and now you're starting to see, you see this narrow line is blossoming in central Kansas there, just in the last couple of hours. And you'll see the blow-ups again. And this is one of the areas, and that line kind of arcs back into southern Nebraska. So look for that line to strengthen some more as we go through the evening hours. The Storm Prediction Center Just hovering back to today, because I went and jumped ahead to day 3 earlier. But here it is right now. Slight risk of severe weather in much of central and eastern Kansas, eastern Nebraska, western Iowa, and then marginal risk that goes up into southern Minnesota and on up into northern Wisconsin. Joe, they actually have, by the way, a slight risk of, not a slight risk, but a general thunderstorm area outlined for overnight, northern New Jersey, northwest into upstate New York. That's from that dying disturbance. And just going back on the radar, I mean, we could see a couple of showers there in western New York. I'm not so sure whether, I don't know. The thunderstorm, that thunderstorm area seemed to be a bit of a reach for me to put that in.
To me, I brought in some clouds after midnight tonight and left them lingering into the early part of tomorrow. I did not mention any kind of precipitation, though. In fact, looking at the consensus between the GFS and the NAM, the GFS gave 3% chance of precipitation at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I mean, why? A 9% chance for the NAM. Why would you go for any kind of precipitation? So he says. And I'll watch tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. I'll be awakened by a crack of thunder. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We have.
I'd say that is a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, we have someone who goes by the name of Coin Pig, who is watching us here from the UK. Welcome, sir. And he says where he is in the UK on Tuesday, it was they had snow, but it was 43 degrees in between snow showers. That's pretty interesting.
43 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, I haven't really been paying much attention to the weather over in Europe and over in the UK, but I guess the pattern is cold. If there's cold, the Arctic cold air is still hanging on tight up in that part of the world. Maybe we'll take a quick look in just a little bit. In the meantime, you see also some rain and showers across South Dakota into central Minnesota, even a few thunderstorms there, and that's part of that area of marginal risk that we took a look at. Now, tomorrow, just going back to SPC, the Storm Prediction Center they beefed it up a little bit here with the slight risk now covering almost all of the state of Mississippi into westernmost Alabama, southern Missouri, almost all of Arkansas except the extreme northwest corner, northern Louisiana, or at least about 2/3 of, let's say the northern half of Louisiana in a slight risk, but marginal risk covers a much larger area on either side. This system is going to peak out tomorrow, so that on Thursday into Friday, the risk area is just a marginal risk. However, I would point out that the marginal risk is in Alabama, Mississippi, northern Louisiana, southern Arkansas. And remember, this is especially for the Mississippi and Alabama being hit very hard from the prior two severe weather outbreaks. So, of course, they're going to be paying very close attention to the developments over the next couple of days. WPC on their rainfall forecast for the next 7 days, they are bringing in 3/4 of an inch to an inch for southern New England and also the lower and middle Hudson Valley to New Jersey, eastern and central Pennsylvania, Maryland down into Virginia, about 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and a few pockets of about 1.25 inches. Heavier rains in the Gulf states, particularly in those areas that are dealing with severe weather risk over the next couple of days, on the order of several inches or more. A lot of these areas here, by the way, have been flooded out from the prior outbreaks, so more rain is not what they want. And also seeing some potential for heavy rains through Minnesota, several inches or more, down into eastern South Dakota, going northeast on up into Canada, just north of Lake Superior. The Northwest seeing a little bit of action precip-wise, also parts of northern Colorado, southeastern Wyoming. But the southwestern quarter of the U.S., California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, for the most part, no precipitation being forecast over the next 7 days. But this rainfall, I mean, this goes out, Joe, through next Tuesday night. So I'm thinking the bulk of this will probably come I was looking at the models and just kind of showing a surge of maybe some showers later Saturday night into Sunday afternoon if that holds together, and then maybe some other showery chances Monday and Tuesday. Although I do see dry periods in that stretch.
Yeah, but before we go further into the weekend, I just want to back up. I pulled up the 18Z North American model FOOS data, the tabular or numerical data.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, first off, I've rarely ever seen for the initial. The initial was for 2 o'clock this afternoon. Straight across the board now at all three levels of the atmosphere, the R1, the R2, the R3. R1, 18%. R2, 22%.
Jeez.
R3, 16%. I mean, you talk about dry, bone dry. Now, that what the Storm Prediction Center has, that area of general thunderstorm activity in our vicinity overnight. The R1, the lowest level of the atmosphere, goes up to 21% by 8 o'clock this evening. In fact, right now, for more or less. By 2 o'clock in the morning, still very low, 31% RH, again, in the lowest levels of the atmosphere. So you say to yourself, well, with that, how could it possibly precip? How can we have any kind of activity? But then from 2 a.m. tonight to 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, the R1 jumps from 31 to 80%. And when I've often said that whenever the R1 goes to 80%, that means that the low level of the atmosphere has moistened up enough to allow for precip to fall. So 80% by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and the vertical velocity, the factor that you would look for in terms of lifting of the atmosphere, lifting to allow for maybe some precipitation or, in this case, convection activity. Negative now, negative at 2 o'clock tomorrow morning. 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, it goes to a plus 5.8, and the lifted index, which is a signal of whether or not you can have convection. It's not in the ballpark really for thunderstorm activity, but it does go from 10 to 5, from 2 o'clock tomorrow morning to 8 o'clock in the morning. So what this is suggesting, Joe, at least the FOOS is suggesting, or the NAM is suggesting, is very quickly toward daybreak tomorrow morning, skies should cloud up. We should have the atmosphere moisten up. They may be, in fact, they're dropping 2/100ths of an inch on LaGuardia by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Whoopee.
So maybe, well, I mean, just maybe, if all this happens, that there might be indeed, as you just mentioned a few moments ago, maybe a few sprinkles here and there. And yeah, this is LaGuardia. They don't give you any information about places just to the west and north. Although let me look at Albany. Albany is not all that much to write home about. But maybe in some places in the immediate vicinity, there might be a grumble of thunder if things change or flip as quickly as what the FOOS is suggesting here for late tonight into tomorrow morning. But then just as quickly as it moves in, it's out of here. And by the time we get to 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, everything is dried out. We're back to subsidence, negative vertical motion, and we're probably back to bright and sunny conditions as well.
All right.
Crazy.
I have to bring this up because I got to wonder if this is a record. So I'm going to bring up, Joe, I pulled up the hazards map, okay? Because if we do wind up with a thunderstorm tomorrow morning, this will be funny, I think. So looking at the hazards right now, and on the hazards map, I've got the observations. I know the numbers are kind of small unless you're looking at this on a big screen, but I have to share this. Caldwell at the moment in New Jersey, in northern New Jersey, and I saw Newark's OB was fairly similar. 66 degrees. The dew point is 3. 3.
So a 63-degree dew point depression,
and
that's amazing.
And now this has got to be. I'm trying to think back. I mean, I remember seeing humidities down in the low teens. Maybe I saw one in a single digits. I can't confirm that, but the relative humidity calculates to 8%. 8% in northern New Jersey in Caldwell. In Andover, in northwest New Jersey, 64. The dew point, 8. The humidity there, 11%. If somebody lights a match, I mean, please don't, because if somebody lights a match over some dry tinder, it's gonna go up. 61 in Scranton. And by the way, thank you, Anthony Orr, for hitting Super Chat tonight. This is for you, Anthony. 61 with a dew point of goose egg, 0. 8% relative humidity. I mean, these are Arizona numbers, Joe. And the odd thing is, if you go down south, okay, if you go down, not that far south, okay, for example, Chester County, west of Philadelphia, the dew point there is 32. 59 temperature with a relative humidity of 36%. In Baltimore right now, it's 68.35 with a humidity of 30% there. You go to Gaithersburg in Montgomery County, it's 68.43 with a humidity of 40%. Now that's a bit more reasonable. It just seems that it's in this pocket here in eastern Pennsylvania into northern New Jersey. Even southern New Jersey has dew points at least up in the mid-30s. Western Long Island, Farmingdale is 26% humidity, 61 temperature, 26 dew point. The driest air is actually sitting in northeastern Pennsylvania over northern New Jersey to about northern and central New Jersey, because Belmar is 62, dew point 12, 14% relative humidity, and Kennedy is 63 with a dew point 12 and a humidity of 13%. I mean, just it's I don't know, that 66 dew point of 3 is and the humidity of 8%. That's got to be one of the lowest numbers I've ever seen for this particular area.
I think, according to New York City weather historian Rob Friedlewitz, the lowest relative humidity at Central Park, and I wish I had written down the date, the lowest is 6%. Well, guess what? Today at 5:51 p.m. at Central Park, the air temperature was 69, the dew point was 3, and the relative humidity 7%. Unbelievable. That is about as low as I could ever remember.
By the way, I'm down here in North Georgia today. I got to 76. It was 44 this morning was the low. Right now, 71, dew point 42, humidity 35%. It was an absolutely beautiful, cloud-free, sunny day. And also, David Schwartz hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you, David, very much. And he says, look at the critical fire warning in New Mexico and parts of Texas. Okay, we will do that. Hang on one second. And... well, first off, let's...
Joe, this is boring because we're actually looking at critical fire warnings in New Mexico to talk about tonight.
No, it's serious. The whole state of New Mexico is under a red flag warning. So is southeastern Arizona and western Texas. And, I'm going to go back to SPC because they got the critical fire danger. I'm just pulling up Albuquerque's forecast here with their red flag warning. Just want to give it a quick read. And poor humidity recoveries are also expected. I like that phrase, poor humidity recoveries. So 20-foot winds, sustained winds of 20 to 30, gusting to 45 and up to 40 on Wednesday, humidity below 10%. Any fires that develop will likely spread rapidly. So let's go back to SPC because they usually put out something. They do the fire stuff on here, so let's see what they have. And let me see if I can find it. Just taking a moment here to load. We do have a severe thunderstorm watch, by the way, that was just issued. Let me see. Severe thunderstorm watch. I'm sorry, it was issued a few hours ago. I stand corrected at 5:21. In central Missouri and in central Kansas and into south central Nebraska until, where did it say here? Valid until 4Z, so that is midnight. See if they do the critical. Here we go. So here's the critical from SPC. on there. They have elevated and critical, critical covering much of New Mexico, western Texas, also southwest the western corner of southwest Texas, and into a small portion of southeastern Colorado. And SPC says in their discussion, the forecast remains on track with only minor adjustments based on observations and morning guidance. This was issued at 10:31 this morning. Relative humidity has already fallen into the low teens. Ha! I mean, humidity, we beat you. We got lower humidity this evening in areas around New York City. For many locations across New Mexico, and winds will increase through the afternoon as the surface low deepens over eastern Colorado. Morning soundings show 25 to 35 mile an hour winds with deep residual layer that will support frequent wind gusts into this range. So certainly the critical fire weather for that part of the country is definitely warranted. I'm not trying to make light of it. It's just that, like Joe said, we seldom talk about this, but I guess in terms of other weather going on, things are on the quiet side. So we're looking at the critical fire weather.
It's absolutely amazing that we are in many that right here in the immediate New York area, John. You're absolutely right. You just go a stone's throw to the west or to the south, and the humidity levels are bumped up anywhere from 15 to 30% higher. So I mean, it's really just concentrated right over the immediate New York area that we have lower humidity and drier conditions than the desert Southwest at this particular moment in time. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it really boils down to the fact that we're in the sweet spot of the block. I'm pulling up the upper air here. The upper low is sitting now at 40 and 60. So this is a position where we're not worried about onshore flow, and we're getting subsidence. That's all dry air that's coming down out of eastern Canada. The block, as we mentioned last night, is a little further south than where you would normally see the blocking that would create problems here weather-wise. Now, that upper low does move out to the east, but then it gets stuck again, and it's far enough east that it starts to allow some of that western traffic to move on through. But there is still some ridging in between to deal with for the end of the week, and that's probably why you're seeing the models kind of weaken the precip areas as they approach on Friday and Saturday. But then finally for Sunday and Monday, you've got a much more wrapped up upper low that makes it into the Great Lakes and actually holds together. And look at this on Monday morning. Interestingly enough, Joe, the block repositions itself more to the northwest, and this is where you start to get into that potential for gloom and doom type weather, because you've got 1, 2, 3 upper lows that are trapped basically underneath that block. So we're enjoying this great weather here, but guess what? If this is correct, if the block suddenly starts to shift northwestward more into the Davis Strait, you're going to pay for these nice days with the several days of at the very least with lots of clouds and probably some occasional showers or rain to deal with.
Now, the fiddler is going to be playing, I guess. It looks like right now that for the upcoming weekend, this is the thing that really makes it hurt even more, is the fact that we're enjoying such a lovely stretch of weather during the work week, those of you who are working. When we get to the weekend, it looks like the weather is not going to be so nice, and maybe on Sunday especially. Right now, from this vantage point, Joe, looks like Sunday really will turn out to be a rather cloud-filled and somewhat damp day. But again, right now, as you said, as far as the relative position or the proximity of the upper low, we are indeed in the sweet spot with about as dry a weather pattern as you will ever see right here in the New York metropolitan area.
So, as always with blocks, it depends on where you are, and obviously, as I said, we're in this sort of sweet spot, but the models seem to be changing on this for later in the weekend and into next week. This is much more gloom and doom. You look at the upper low I mean, it's just kind of weird here because you got an upper low that drops down from Labrador to Newfoundland and then retrogrades back westward to Maine almost, and then another upper low kind of pivots behind underneath it, and you get this sort of pinwheel that rotates around. I mean, this is pretty interesting if this winds up verifying. And then there's yet another trough that comes on later on in the forecast period. So I'm sure this is all going to get resolved somewhat differently than what's being advertised. But if the general theme holds, as I said, the nice weather that we've had, you got another day or so of it, and then we're going to start to see it go in a different direction, something that in a direction that probably is more likely of what you see during the month of April as opposed to what you're seeing now.
And Mark G just said, is alluding to the fact that by saying that, by you and I alluding to the fact that the weather is going to go downhill later in the week and for the weekend, he says, "Oh no, here come the complaints from Sal."
Yeah, I know Sal's already listed a whole bunch of comments on some of the videos from my Weather in 5 video from earlier, and put a whole list of questions that I will probably get to at some point tonight if I get a little insomnia. But in the meantime, watching the GFS, you could see the flare up of storms tomorrow in Arkansas, Western Tennessee, and into northern Louisiana. And then, of course, as we said, for Thursday, it's probably less robust. But going into Friday and Saturday, looks like some rough weather and heavy rains in southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, and then that's spreading into Mississippi and Alabama over the weekend. So there might be yet more severe weather risk and more flash flooding risk for this area going into the weekend. In the meantime, here in the Northeast, again, we lose that low to the east, which has been so key in keeping things dry. And then you actually get a little bit of a weak high to the north that produces an onshore flow. The first low is pinned back west into the western lakes, so anything that moves into that winds up weakening. But you finally get a little bit of shower activity here on Saturday, and the GFS at least has been insisting for later Saturday night, Sunday, to have something more robust in terms of rain or showers. And then next week, very unsettled here with these upper lows and areas of disturbed weather that just sort of move on through from northwest to southeast. And again, this is something I guess we're going to have to pay attention to for next week with regards to having a gloom and doom type of scenario setting up.
Yes. So Sal, sorry. It's like the old saying goes, it'll be time to pay the fiddler, and the fiddler will be fiddling, I think, especially so Sunday and on into the opening stages of next week. But enjoy it as you have it right now.
Yes, correct. All right, so let's do a little bit of Briller Jeopardy here. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so the category tonight is Toys and Games Volume 2. Okay? Believe it or not, there is a national toy of fame. It started in 1998. In the first year, 11 classic toys and games were included. How many can you name? Okay? I'll give you, these are the hints. Only one is a board game, and all 11 were introduced in the 1950s or earlier.
Okay. The board game, would that happen to be Monopoly?
That is correct.
Okay. So now I have to figure out toys and games. So is Silly Putty on that list?
No, that is not correct.
No, Silly Putty did not make that list.
No.
How about Mr. Machine?
No.
You remember Mr. Machine? Mr. Machine was not on the list?
No.
Oh dear me.
No, Mr. Machine.
Possibly? I'm thinking of all the toys I could remember from, but I don't go back. I mean, I was alive in the 1950s, but I wasn't mindful enough to be aware of toys of that nature back then.
I had a few of these.
What possibly? Oh, I'm sure. How about Etch a Sketch?
Etch a Sketch was number 3. That is correct.
Number three. All right, that's good. So we're back on track, so to speak. Only one of them was a board game, so I got to throw away all the board games. Um, Mrs. Rayo asks on the chat board, Slinky,
Nope.
or was Slinky a more like an Slinky? I think was
It's
more of an early
Slinky. It's
1960s.
Slinky.
Slinky.
It's Slinky.
Yeah.
No.
Uh, how about well, checkers was a board game, so I don't. Um, how about you're a big railroad fan? How about Lionel and Ho trains?
Nope.
Were they
Not
part
on,
of the
not
game?
on
No?
not on the list.
Good Lord. I'm trying to think.
All right,
I'm
I'll give you I'll give you a couple of hints on some of them. So
Okay.
this one particular toy was actually discussed recently, and it was one where I said that if you want to get even with parents of kids that you don't like, you give them this toy.
Play-Doh.
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 See, I'm looking at the chat board, and
Here's another
people.
one. Here's another one. I'll give
Yeah.
you a hint. Okay. Okay. So the people who had this toy, it's called a toy. I don't know that I would call this a toy. All right. But they listed these as a toy. You had them, but you wanted the bigger box of these.
The bigger box.
The bigger box. The box of 6.
Could be Tinker Toy.
Tinker Toy is on.
Oh,
Tinker Toy is on there. Tinker Toy is on the list.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Okay.
The bigger box, that had to be the Crayola Crayons?
Crayola
That was
Crayons.
a toy?
Yes, they consider that a toy.
Yes, a lot of what people are putting up on the chat board are toys of the 60s, not the 50s. G.I. Joe came around, I think, in the early 60s.
Right.
Twister came around in the early 60s.
Right.
Slinky, of course.
But
Jason sticks.
Jason Barry got one here. Legos.
Yeah.
Now,
I didn't know that they went back that far.
right. Now, this is actually so popular down here that they have a golf game version of this in the local park. I think I may have told you about this.
A golf game version?
Yeah. Instead of using golf balls, they use this thing and they fling it. And it's not your cat Flopsy, just so you know. I fling, huh?
I'm now. Here's one I disagree with my wife on the chat board. Hula hoop. No, hula hoops didn't begin in the '60s. They were in the '50s. Was hula hoops one of the?
No, hula hoops is not on the list. But Jason Barry got another one that I really like that you haven't mentioned yet, Joe. And I love this
Frisbee?
toy. Frisbee's the one I was just getting at you. The Frisbee. Jason Barry brought up the Erector Set. I loved the Erector Set. I loved building the bridges and the screws and all of those things that you could build with the Erector Set.
But you know what? Growing up, I did not get an Erector Set. You know what my parents got me? Kenner came up with a plastic version of the Erector Set. I don't know if you remember this, but I mean, it was like an Erector Set, except the girders and everything else were made of plastic.
Yeah.
And
Super City?
I don't.
Was it Super?
Well, I mean, you could make bridges out of it and buildings. And,
I had Super City. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
It had girders and all the rest and frames and things. We had this one's actually still Legos. So we mentioned that Jason got that one. So the one that two remain. Okay. One is one is, but one I would probably regard to more as a something that a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old might take to bed with to keep him company.
What, a baby bottle? No.
No,
A nook? A nook nook? Now
no.
those things you used to put in your mouth or whatever.
You would cuddle it.
Uh,
You would cuddle it.
oh, a teddy
A
bear?
teddy bear. And the
A
other,
teddy
and
bear.
the last one on the list is a game that we found out just recently was very popular among the first free presidents of the United States.
What? No, we didn't say. Oh, see how things just pop out of your head?
Yeah, because
I know we discussed this.
you're over 60, Joe. Everything pops out of your head, and just like me.
Um, yeah, and I know we mentioned it. Oh, marbles, marbles.
Marbles. That's the one.
Yes.
That was pretty
Yep.
interesting. Um, that was pretty interesting. Yeah, you were again. These were all toys. Oh, we left out one. I'm sorry, we left out one. Number one, still very
The number
popular.
one toy.
Right, still very popular today. Barbie, the Barbie doll.
That's right. She came along. She came along in 1959, I think.
Yes.
And my sister had what I think was well, my sister was born in '59, but one of the early Barbies, she had a black poodle type haircut, and if she still had that Barbie in reasonably good condition today, she could retire right now.
Oh yeah, that's
All,
amazing.
but what kills me is all these toys that we had would make us a small fortune if we still had them today in pristine condition. I came across. Did you have the board game Challenge the Yankees? It
No.
was made by Hasbro. I had that board game back in like 1964, 65. If you can get a mint condition or very good condition game, Challenge the Yankees, you could easily sell that for or get that for like $2,000. Hard to believe, but ah,
Yep. Woulda, coulda,
that's
shoulda. But I will tell you that at least with my Lionel trains, I have the original boxes, and
wow.
some of the cars. I saved all the boxes because I've never sold any of these. These are going to be for my descendants when
Grandchildren.
I leave this earth. Yes. So what they do with it is certainly their business. Although I will curse them in the afterlife if they do this. But yeah, if you sell them and you have the original boxes, you actually can get 25 to 30% a higher price than without the box. So, and I
Wow.
also have the Hess. I used to buy the Hess trucks, and I have a whole bunch of them that in their original packaging that have never been opened. But there's a part of me that's
Right.
bothered by that because the toys, I'm sort of the same line of the Island of Misfit toys. Toys were meant to be played with, so I don't. In a way, I don't really see the point of buying something and then keeping it in its original box, and then giving it to my grandsons and saying, "Oh, by the way, you can't really open this. You have to put it away and just like wait till
Right.
you're wait till grandpa's gone one day and then you sell it and you get lots of money and it pays for your college." I mean
Yeah.
that's not what
Yeah.
this is about. This is about imagination. This is about fun. This is about I used to love with my trains and building build villages and homes and making it look like a real town and the plastic people walking around. Occasionally, I would throw a couple on the train tracks as the train was approaching and play Penelope Pit Stop. But no, but the point is, it's about imagination. It's about having fun. They need to be played with. A toy needs to be loved.
Yes.
Yes.
You want to see one of my more valuable things, and it's on the wall. I'm staring at it right here, and I will show it to you. It's in a frame, Ugh. And I got this for being a finalist, a borough finalist. The Daily News used to have a science fair back in the '60s and '70s, and I was a borough finalist in 1971. And I'll show this to you right here. This is in a frame, and you
Oh,
could
how cool
see
is that?
the patch. Now, that tiny little piece of film strip, see that right there? That piece of film strip on NASA stationery, it says the attached 16 millimeter film strip landed on the lunar surface November 18th, 1969, with me on Apollo 12, signed by Alan Bean, Captain USN, United States Navy, NASA astronaut. This was from the this is from the J.A. Maurer Corporation, manufacturer of the Apollo Data Acquisition Camera in conjunction with NASA. So what I'm assuming this was a piece of film that didn't have anything on it. Maybe it was the leader or at the end or something like that. And instead of just throwing it away, when they brought it back to the moon, they said, "Hey, we'll cut this up and we'll give it out like a souvenir." So what you're seeing here, this film strip, actually landed on the moon with Alan Bean, astronaut Alan Bean, during Apollo 12 in 1969.
That's insane. That's
And
great. That's great.
they,
That's just
they,
great.
there you see it. Amazing. However, I have seen now on the TV show Pawn Stars flags and other memorabilia that went to the moon and back. And this is not maybe as I will never give this up, but it's not as valuable as you would think. Somebody said, "My God, that's like
It's valuable
thousands of
to
dollars
you,
or something."
but it's valuable to you. That's
But
what matters.
it is valuable.
It's
It's
valuable
and the
to
fact is
you.
that now I once asked somebody at NASA years later to give me an idea of how much they would say, and they wouldn't say it because they said too many things of ours have landed on eBay in recent years,
Yeah.
and so that person did not tell me what it was. But still, it's a sentimental value. It's amazing thing that this thing traveled to the moon. I have a piece of it, and I will continue to hold on to it for as long as I manage to stay on this earth.
That's it. Like I said, it's valuable to you. All right, folks.
Yep.
We'll call it a night, and that was a very interesting. After we got done with the weather, very interesting subject matter with toys. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. They've got mulch and topsoil. They make their mulch there, folks, so they never run out. So head over there. Best prices in town. Cheaper than just about anywhere else on Long Island. Again, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, 631-756-1125. And the website is omnitruevalue.com. So Joe and I will be back tomorrow night at the usual showtime, which is 7:30 Eastern. So have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.
One last thing, Joe. My wife on the chat board talking to Chuck Cardillo and says, Joe, when we were on our honeymoon,
Yes.
Joe's mom threw out a lot of his stuff. One of the things that she threw out was a rookie card. It was Jerry Kuzman and Nolan Ryan were on this baseball card, and of course, the card is more valuable because of Nolan Ryan than Jerry Kuzman. But this card today, I could retire with that card if I still had it. And my mom, after I left the house to go on my honeymoon, she went into my room and she literally threw out tons of stuff, memorabilia, important papers, documents, or whatever. And she said, "Well, now that you're gone, I decided I'd finally clean up that room."
You're not alone.
And I was in tears.
You're not alone.
I'm not joking you. I'm not joking you. Or making this up, and Renata will back me up on this. I was in tears. I was
I'm
in
sure
crying.
you were.
We were right in the middle of my honeymoon, and what did you do, Mom? What did you? And I'm still reeling from that all of these years later. Good night, folks.
Good night.